Hey everybody. I've decided to do a video and put some thoughts out there. Um, I have pulled myself away from the carpet python community on Facebook probably over the last 6 months. If you follow NPR, you've heard me talk about, wanting to get every species of python and work with them and all this, because that was a goal of mine. And, you know, whether that goal will come to fruition or not, who knows? Couple things that I've learned in doing that. One, when you look outside of the niche of the hobby that you're in, you start to see things differently. Your perspective changes. You don't get as excited about the little things anymore. You find people that really do have a passion for the animal that they keep, regardless of what species it is. A couple people come to mind that I've crossed paths with by stepping outside of my box. One, Brian Cusco. What an awesome guy. He's one of these guys that talk about being positive, but he doesn't talk about it. His actions show that he's positive. I'm sure that Brian has bad days just like everyone else. I'm sure he gets frustrated with things just like everyone else. But what he does is he doesn't use his platform to knock people down. It's more for building people up. Another one that comes to mind, Garrett Hartel from Reach Out Reptiles. Another guy, super positive. I like his approach. I like his thoughts. You know, one of the things that happened at Tinley was, he came up to me and we were talking or whatever. I said, wow, this guy's a really awesome guy. He's talking to me about his retics and, I guess he'd listened to NPR and, heard me talking about, wanting to get into different species of pythons. So he had some criticism of the show, and it seemed like at first he was a little reluctant to say it because he didn't know how I would react. I was like, no, man, I welcome that. I want that. I'm looking for that feedback. I don't know how the show sounds as a listener because I'm the host. So my perspective is different than everybody else's perspective. The whole idea of Morelia Python Radio was, at the time, you really couldn't find information on carpet pythons. So what better way than to do a podcast and get these great breeders on, talk about what they do. The one thing that I have learned from doing Morelia Python Radio is that everybody does everything different. And that's okay. Just where you are in the United States can really affect how you keep or breed pythons or snakes or reptiles. That was really eye-opening for me. That, like, if I'm telling somebody that they're doing something wrong, well, maybe they're doing something right for where they are and what their circumstances are. A lot of times people think that they're baking a cake. You're not baking a cake. You're keeping a live animal in captivity. That snake is going to tell you what it wants. You just have to learn how to understand what the snake is trying to tell you. And once you do that, you don't need a care sheet. You don't need somebody to tell you how to breed. all you need to do is just pay attention to your snakes. That's what I've learned. That's the biggest takeaway for me from doing the show for 6 years. I have been guilty on NPR of being negative in the same type of way. Going on these rants. Everybody says, Eric's got the passion. It's fired up. For the people that agree with me, it's awesome. People that disagree with me, they think I'm a tool. That's fine. What my job is to figure out how to get that same message across without knocking somebody else down. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. What a lot of people don't understand about Morelia Python Radio is it's live. There's very few podcasts that are live. Meaning you don't edit. You can't take back what you said. Sometimes when you're going on a topic, you say things that you wish you could take back, and you can't because now it's out there. Maybe you say things that you didn't mean to say it, but when you were saying it, it sounded right. But it didn't. I think we've gotten better with that over time, but still got a long way to go when it comes to trying to stay on course. At the end of the day, the whole idea is that we're trying to show people how awesome the snakes that we keep are. That's it. That's the goal. Try to bring people together rather than tear them apart. You know, something comes to mind when I think about this. And this is just not with snakes. It's with everything anymore in life. Whether it's politics, religion, snakes, the cell phone you use. If you're in this camp, you can't like people from that camp. It's very tribal. It's a very tribal way of doing things. I think it's imprinted in our DNA that, you know, this is who I root for, and I will kill the invaders. That's not healthy. I have to try to pull myself out of that thinking. Somebody that comes to mind when it comes to that is Philip from Star Pythons. It seems that if you like Star Pythons, the idea is to hate us or people associated with us. And that's a shame. It's both ways. It's a shame. I've talked to Philip a few times, mostly at Tinley. He seems like an awesome guy. It's kind of sad the last Tinley that there's a guy with some awesome carpet pythons on his table, and yet the carpet python people didn't go to see his table. I think I and somebody else were like the only people that came over that were other carpet python breeders there. I don't look at if you buy a snake from me or a snake from somebody else as a bad thing, because let's face it, nobody just gets one snake. You may think you're going to get one snake, but it never works out that way. So you're it's sort of like an investment, you know. I look at it as, well, at least they're getting in the carpet pythons. Maybe, you know, they'll start to research. Maybe they'll come across me. And maybe, you know, that person will become a customer. And when they become a customer, maybe they'll become a friend. And maybe we can share ideas together. I don't know. You know, maybe that's too crazy. But I don't know. That's just how I look at it. I don't look at it as a competition. Um, and I'm not saying that I agree with everything that he does. And I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything that I do. And that's fine. But we could still have a beer together and talk about what we love. Carpet pythons. Who knows? Maybe there's other things that we would have in common that we don't even know. On the flip side of that, I consider Nick Mutton a close friend of mine. When I came into the hobby, you know, Nick was somebody that kind of took me under his wing, so to speak. And Nick can be rough. We all know that, you know. I think he's been on the show many times and talked about that. But at the end of the day, you can't take away that the guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe it's just his delivery. But he still knows his shit. That should warrant some level of respect. A lot of the projects that people are working with are here because of him. I don't understand. But the thing is that I can't like them both. I either have to pick one or the other. I can't be friends with this one or that one. And that's not from those guys. That's from the people that follow those guys. That's from the people that say, you know, oh, well, you're just a Nick Mutton flunky, or you're just a Star Pythons flunky. Like, when did we become divided? I miss the days of healthy debate. I would love to debate people that don't agree with me. I would love for them to contact me and say, hey, Eric, I want to come on NPR and talk about, you know, that thing that you guys talked about last week because I don't agree with you. You may teach me something. I may teach you something. That's the whole idea. Leave your ego at the door and try to learn from each other. Because at the end of the day, you may do something better than I do, and I never would have thought about that. Maybe you'll save me some time in how I clean, or, you know, there's a better product, or a problem that I'm having that I don't even think to ask you could help with, and that could keep me from giving the hobby up, because this thing frustrated me so much that I'm ready to just quit and sell all my snakes. But we talked about it or debated something, and I see something through a different perspective. And perspective, to me, I have to deal with this at work. I have about 350 people that are underneath me. I had to learn about perspective real quick in order to be successful as their leader. Why do we always think the worst in people? Why is it automatically we jump to that person's a piece of shit? Because we all have bad days and bad situations, and maybe we react poorly to that situation that we're in. But it's really easy to judge when you're on the sidelines and not in the situation. It's a lot harder to actually take a step back and look at it through the other person and think about, what would you do? I would be willing to bet you might do the same thing that they did. You just didn't get dealt the shitty hand. Perspective. I'm going to talk about perspective from new keepers and older keepers. I'll start with the new keepers first. New keepers, you're coming into a hobby where everything is there for you. You are not used to the days where there was no information. You would be lucky to pull something out of a book about the species that you love. There was no podcasts. There was no YouTube. It was trial and error. It was, you're getting this snake and you're taking a shot. The people that came before us paved the way for us. They left this hobby for us. What are we doing to leave it better than what we got it for the next group? I don't know. My little piece of the pie, as little as it may seem, Morelia Python Radio, Carpet Fest. Who knows, 20 years from now, Morelia Python Radio, like, you know, if you want to learn about diamond pythons, maybe that information that's on those shows is inaccurate. Maybe we've learned new things, developed new ways of keeping. New technology has brought about, you know, new advances in how we think about things. So maybe it will be worthless in 20 years. But I know when I was coming into it, I wish there was a podcast that I could listen to. There was Reptile Radio, and every once in a while they would touch on carpet pythons. And god damn was I excited when they would do that. Holy shit. It was like, I can't believe, yes, they're talking about this. Wow, listen to this guy talk about what he's doing. And I'm actually listening to what he's saying and taking it in and writing notes. And I don't know. If we help one person, then to me it's worth it. Carpet Fest, another thing. People talked about it forever. Forever. Never did anything about it. At the same time, I had Nick Mutton in my ear telling me there's people that do and there's people that talk. Who are you going to be? I decided that I was going to be somebody that did. I was going to be the guy that said, you know what? Let's do this. So I rallied up a group of people and we got together. It's a freaking barbecue. That's all it is. The idea is when you're at a show, you're not able to talk to somebody and really get to know them and what they're about. And them as a person. Forget about the snake part of it, but them as a person. Who knows? They might become your best friend. So that's how that came about. That's the idea, you know? So I'm just trying to paint the perspective that keepers before me, and I'm not lumping myself into this category, but keepers and breeders that are at a high level now, you know, I think of Nick Mutton, Jason Balin, you know, Michael Pinnell, Chris Rendels, you know, Luke Snell, who doesn't do it anymore, but man, the list goes on and on. Paul Harris, you know, Ollie from Precision. These are all guys that, you know, when the carpet python community was just starting to bump, they were the guys that were that laid the groundwork and did all these things and bred these animals to, you know, Yasser with IJs, you know, I said IJs, it should be Poplins. You know, his vision got me excited about them, you know. I remember going to Luke Snell's place and actually seeing an adult carpet python and looking at his collection. I was blown away. This guy doesn't know me. And he invited me to his place to check out his stuff. How did I do that? Well, Zach Baez contacted me. I didn't know who he was. He wanted to come and check out my collection. I said, sure, man, come on by. Because he lived in the area. He came by. We hung out. He taught me how to photograph my animals. which is awesome. That was huge for me because I took shitty pics before that. And I still got a lot to learn. But the point is that if I would have done that, where would I have been? If I would have just looked at it as, well, who's this guy? Where would we be? And me and Zach, we didn't always agree on things. We didn't always see eye to eye. But I respected him and he respected me. That seems to be lost. So, the perspective that you have to look at is when you come on and you ask the question and you get an answer but you don't like the answer or you disagree with the answer. Like, let's say it's talking about breeding and you think that you know best about breeding. You've bred 2 years, yet some of these other guys have been breeding for 20 plus years. Imagine the data that they have, and just even if it's in their brain, of how these pythons work. You can't take that away. There should be respect for that. Now, as far as old keepers to new keepers, what I see a lot of time is there's not a lot of tolerance. And that's a shame. There's not a lot of tolerance when it comes to them asking the stupid question. Let's face it, carpet pythons are unlike any other group of pythons there is. There's all these subspecies. Then there's the sister species that aren't even subspecies. What's a morph? Is it jungle morph or is it what? I don't understand. And there's so much misinformation out there about what it is. And then people start to say that, and when somebody tries to correct them, they get all offended and bent out of shape because the person that they like gave them the wrong information. Let's face it, facts are facts. The other thing I see a lot of times, and I think this is in both sides of it, and I have really made a point to not do this, is that we talk about people or things that we haven't even talked to. That we even haven't had the chance to interact with them. We're just repeating what somebody else said. Somebody said that guy has mites. Oh, he's a scumbag. Somebody said that he sent an animal with a respiratory infection. Scumbag. But yet you never see the person that actually got the animal come on and talk about if they're a scumbag. I try to really reserve my opinion anymore about people to just being about me and you interacting. If I interacted with you and you gave me a bad deal, a bad snake, and you didn't do right by it or whatever, then yeah, it's my place to come on and talk about that. A lot of people criticize NPR for that. I'm sorry, I'm not calling somebody out that I don't know both sides of the story. I know one side of the story. And just because I like the person that's telling me that doesn't mean that that's what actually happened. That's perspective. That's taking a step back and looking at something and thinking about something before you react to it. That's what I want to try to make better for me. And hopefully, if I do that, that will make the community better for everyone else. You know, it only takes one person to change, and it's surprising how the rest of the people will fall in line with positive people. It just takes you. That's it. Just worry about you. Stop with the calling people out. Stop with the saying this person's an asshole and that person's an asshole and da-da-da-da-da. You know, I'm going to talk about the Nido show that we did. There's so much misinformation about Nido out there. And we just did a show on it. Talk about perspective. I held off on doing that show because I didn't want to get on a show and talk about something that I felt that I didn't know about. I still don't feel that I know about it. But I couldn't put it off anymore. I couldn't wait. Not because I think that people are trying to get over. Just because I wanted people to have the information. I wanted them to have the resources available, who they can talk to, what they can do if this problem happens in your collection. I made a statement on the show about how it's probably in a majority of our collection. It probably is. But somehow our animals are still surviving and still alive. Some people have had, collections crash. That was one of the questions I asked on the show. One of the questions I asked was, if this is such a devastating virus, then why are more people's collections not wiped out? Guess what? They're the scientists, and they don't know. So when I got some random person coming along that hasn't even taken the time to read the paper, talk about it like they're an expert, I just have to take a step back. So, the one thing I would ask, just try to think of things that way. Think of it take the time to try to think from the other perspective. People could have thought that we put off the Nido show because we didn't want to talk about it because maybe Owen or I had it in our collection. I don't know. I may. I'm going to get animals tested I have one going Tuesday. I wasn't panicking about it. I was trying to keep my head straight. Another thing that I've learned in my job is when you're leading a group of people, they respond how you act. And if you're panicking and freaking out, everybody else is going to freak out. Do you think that the money that I put into my collection I want to see disappear because of a virus? Because somebody somewhere wasn't being responsible? And then people get on and they think that they're somehow not affected by it because they have ball pythons or retics or, whatever python. Guess what? It affects all pythons. It's been found in almost all of them. So it's not just a Morelia problem. It's an everybody problem. The one thing that this has taught me more than anything is that I have to really take a step back and revamp and relook at and analyze my keeping protocol, my quarantine protocol, all of those things that maybe you let slide every once in a while. If anything happens from this, I hope that that's what people take away from it. I don't think that people should be panicking and not buying animals and, all that kind of stuff. And you should be very leery. You should make sure you buy in from somebody that you that you trust. And even then you can't be 100% accurate. But when that animal comes into your collection, it's your responsibility to make sure that that animal is healthy and not wait. This has been a long video, and I've said a lot of things, and hopefully we can just try to make this a more positive community. Hopefully we can try to be a little more accepting of each other, even if we disagree. And just make this an awesome thing to do. These animals are awesome. I never in a million years thought that I would have a Darwin or an inland in my collection. And there they are. I never thought that I would be able to work with them. Because in my day, there was coastals, jungles, and IJs. That was it. And more we're coming across new morphs, and subspecies are becoming available. Localities are available. It's an awesome time. So let's make it awesome. And stop being negative. So, please, if you have a problem with me, with the show, or with somebody else, take a few seconds to reach out to that person and tell them what you're thinking. Who knows? They might become a good friend. That's all I'm going to say for today. I think I've said enough. Thanks for watching. And I hope this, at the very least, made you take a step back and think about things. Thanks.